Hey, you Stygian Dogs. Thanks for joining the live stream event. There's a lot to talk about in the world of Conan and Robert E. Howard, and who better to chat about it with than grim Jim Zub. As most of you will know, Jim is the current chronicler of Conan's adventures in the monthly Conan the Barbarian comic series from Titan Comics and Heroic Signatures. Jim, thanks so much for joining the channel tonight.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Even though I've been doing this for quite a while, when someone talks about what I'm doing, there's always that weird, almost out of body moment where I go, "Yep, that's my job." It's very, it's awesome. Very surreal. Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously, there's lots to chat about, including the recent Free Comic Book Day release, Conan Tides the Tyrant King, Savage Sword of Conan number 14, and just a month away is Howard Days 2026. So this is going to be a message for all the dog brothers and sisters of Set. Post your questions and salutations in the chat. I'm going to moderate whatever we see on screen, try to keep things positive in the chat. I know everybody's eager to hear from Jim, but as people filter in, start posting in the chat. Let's welcome Dan from Conan Chronology. We're waiting online. Hopefully he shows up. Dan, what have you been up to recently?
Reading some Conan the Barbarian stuff, if you can believe it.
I think you posted, I think you've posted a few things.
I have. I'm mostly preparing for Howard Days. I'm trying to get my my presentation ready, and it's.
Are you doing homework?
I'm doing homework and trying to put together something that will not bore people.
Yes. So awesome. I was trying to stream to Twitter as well, but it doesn't want to work. So who cares?
No
so we got a few people. Let's see who's here right now. We have Matthew Stewart. You dogs.
Awesome.
We got Eddie Green. And I mean, the night would not be complete if 2 + 2 is 5 wasn't here. How's it going, man? And of course,
mainstay.
Yeah, absolutely. Tristan was here earlier commenting as well. What's up, guys? Hey, Tristan.
Amazing.
And Lord of Lek, where are you? Good evening, gentlemen, and those barbarians amongst you. I mean, all these are mainstays on my channel. I think everybody else's channels. It's such a small, tight-knit community, right? Peter, how's it going, man? Jim, do you read the Titan Pastiche novels? Well, we'll get to those questions.
Yeah.
We'll get to those questions.
I will definitely chat about all this stuff for sure.
But I guess we could start. How did you spend Free Comic Book Day?
That's a good question. So there's a place called Gotham Collectibles in Mississauga, which is just west of Toronto. And they have been inviting me out for Free Comic Book Day for years, since the new Conan series launched, with Heroic. And I had just always had other bookings. So I've done Third Eye Comics a couple times. And then in 2024, I was actually in Tokyo in Japan. So I did Free Comic Book Day at a shop in Japan, which was amazing. And so I felt really bad. But this time I knew I was going to be in Toronto for a change. So I reached out to Carlos at the shop there and I said, hey, I've got, another Conan Free Comic Book Day coming out this year. And I'm also doing this manga classics book with Udon. You're going to have 2 titles and I can promote both of them at the same time. Let's do it. And he was, of course, really excited and just kind of pulled out all the stops. So it was me and Chip Zdarsky, Nick Marinkovich. And it was a great lineup of people, literally a lineup. They had a crazy line out the door and I was just signing up a storm. Chip was obviously doing a lot of stuff over at Marvel. He wrapped up his run on Batman and now he's doing the Avengers event this summer for Marvel. And so he had a rockin' line the whole time there. And then I was just signing up a storm with Conan and chatting with people. And it's always fun to see, people come to the store for Free Comic Book Day and then they're discovering stuff. And a lot of times the older guys are like, oh, I used to collect Conan. And you're like, hey, there's new stuff. And you show it to them and their eyes just light up. It's the best feeling in the world. So some brand new fans getting brought into the mix. Having a Free Comic Book Day book is an incredible bit of promotion. And I feel so fortunate that we've had one literally every year since the relaunch. I thought it was just going to be a 2023 thing, but Titan has found it to just be this explosive way to help promote the book and to get it into the hands of as many people as possible. And so the digital download should be, Titan's doing some maintenance on their website. Apparently this week there was talk that it might be up earlier this week, but it looks like It's going to be either Friday, I think, or Monday. It'll be up. So then I'll be pushing that link out to everybody, that free PDF download. And it's usually on Kindle for $0 as well. So you can get it on your e-reader. And that's the great thing about it is, posting that link and just getting it out as far and as wide as humanly possible.
Yeah, they're always so excellent too. Like you get a full story, like all the other issues, kind of a snippet, but like with this, you feel rewarded for your time.
Yeah, you get
I
wanted to have a meaty, kind of prelude there, and it's always a balancing act where you need it to feel like it's substantial, but if people miss it and they grab the first issue of the event book, that they don't feel completely lost at the same time. So it's that weird kind of juggling act. The Conan number 0 that we did for 2023, that was the most important one in many ways, because it was really setting our kind of mission statement in terms of, hey, we're going to bring back the old fan base. We really want to rekindle that fire with those longtime fans and readers. And obviously Roberto de la Torre's artwork did, so much heavy lifting on that and really blew people's minds. And the day after that book came out, that's the first time I've ever had retailers like frantically messaging me, trying to get copies of a book, like that, let alone a free comic day one. It was really mind bending to then see that, how wide it went. And it was really transformative. And it's been kind of a rocket ride ever since, honestly.
Was this one ever in question because of the changes with distribution?
There was actually. So there was talk that it wasn't going to happen. So in the original outline, because I'm planned out really far ahead, the original outline had the prelude issue built in. I had this is what's going to happen exactly every beat for the storyline. And then we were told, oh, Free Comic Day is not happening. So I asked if we could get some extra pages in issue 1 and kind of incorporate that prelude right into the first issue, or if we could do an online only kind of version that we would release ourselves as a teaser for issue 1. So basically there was talk that we wouldn't necessarily get the 12 pages that we did get for Free Comic Day. So there was talk at one point of either 6 or 8 pages that we would do essentially ahead of time, release those online around the same time as Free Comic Day, just digital. And it would never be, it wouldn't be printed until issue 1. And so you'd get that kind of teaser into it. That's what I was sort of pushing for if we weren't going to be able to do Free Comic Day. And so I was sort of rejigging scenes and trying to make sure it would work. And then all of a sudden out of the blue, they were like, oh, it's back on. We've got 12 pages, stop sweating. And I was just like, oh, okay, great. Go back to the original plan.
Yeah. As Tristan says, we look forward to it every year. It's just been so good. Can we? Yeah. Are we comfortable talking about the big reveal in this yet? Or
sure. Yeah. I feel like it's been.
I feel like it should be there.
Yeah.
I was hoping the PDF was going to be out earlier this week, and then
me too.
Nobody would have any excuse, right? So Rick, who we know from the Facebook groups, I've seen him bring you a stack of comics before he went live. We were talking about signing things. He was teasing me a little bit online because he's like, well, how did you not see it coming, Evan? And I mean, I'm not surprised. So the big reveal is that it's Stephen Costigan from Skullface.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know you.
Which I think for non-Conan fans is a deep cut because they wouldn't necessarily know. Yeah. But I feel like that with all like Battle of the Blackstone has a bunch of characters that people wouldn't have known if they're not in the wider kind of Robert E. Howard, reading circle. And the same thing kind of holds true, even though obviously Cull is probably the best known. You've still got, Kirwan that we used last time for Scourge of the Serpent. So it's in the tradition of those other event miniseries where we're pushing out wider into what I think was jokingly called the Howard verse, and now it just sort of the name just kind of stuck, and we've been using it ever since.
Shanks has owned it.
Yeah, it's great, and it's so funny because when we started on this crazy journey, and I was talking to Jeff and Matt, my original editor on the book, and we were planning out, oh, it'd be cool to do this, it'd be amazing to do that. These were kind of just kind of dream ideas. Like, it would be amazing if we could do one event and it would tie in these kinds of elements. And so the fact that we have a master plan, And it's sort of like we have the dream version, man, if the best case scenario, we get to do this, and build it out as wide as possible. And we keep hitting those milestones. That's the best kind of version for me. And now we're like full steam ahead. We've lined up our artists all the way through to issue 50, which is crazy, in the best way possible. I'm already writing, in the late 30s. It's been great. And so we already know what that next event miniseries is going to be. I just secured the artist for that like a week and a half ago. And we're already starting to talk and get into the kind of design stage of this thing. And that's over a year and a half out. So it's kind of the best case scenario where everyone gets to put their best foot forward and make the highest quality book, that's going to showcase all of them. I'm putting the feature story for our tie-in issue for Tides is been written for quite a while, and the artist is cranking away on that. And then the shorter stories that are tying into the event, just like we did last time, with Scourge in issue 10 of Savage Sword. We're going to be doing issue 16, and all 3 of those stories are going to be a lot of fun, and I'm really excited for people to read them.
Good stuff. Just trying to keep an eye on the chat as we go. So many people. Okay,
that's good.
Yeah,
I love that people are coming out. Yeah, so just so people know, I'm not seeing the chat, so I'm sure I'll see little comments flying through or whatnot. But thank you so much for coming, gang, and it means a lot. And it's there's
a lot of questions in here and stuff already.
Oh, good.
No, I got some offline too. Now's the time to grill Jim about Bran. I don't think we want to do that, because I thought we were going to get to Bran in this event.
No, Bran's if you want to look at this like the hand of cards that I've been holding, to hold close to my chest, right? So, Blackstone was obviously the first kind of card, the big card on the table. Well, because we opened with Bound in Blackstone, and we were already hinting at the Thulsa Doom of it all, and then building out those first 12 issues. And I've mentioned this multiple times, but just to kind of clarify, the original commitment that I got from Heroic Signatures and Titan was 12 issues. It was the free comic book day, 1 to 12. So if you read 0 to 12, that could have been it. That could have been my time at Titan, because we didn't know how the series would do. There was bigger plans, and we had thoughts about where it could go, but we didn't know for sure if it was all going to work out. And then, by issue 3, we were starting to negotiate like a long-term contract, because the insane, sales and response. And they already, I think Heroic had, don't quote me on that, I think they had 6 languages lined up at that point. And now we have like 11. And so they were hopeful that, between the foreign sales and the English sales, that the book would be, able to hold its own. And now it's expanded even further outward. And there's other publishers who are like reaching out from other international markets who haven't published Conan ever, or haven't published it in decades, and are interested in getting back into the Hyborian Age because of that excitement, because of that continuous momentum that we've been able to generate. And that is something I'm extremely, extremely proud of. And so, yeah, getting to build out Blackstone, it was like, okay, this is a pillar of the whole thing. That first year and a half, what's that going to look like, and what's that going to feel like? And then the kind of Savage Sword of it all, that was really Matt Murray and the rest of the Heroic team was like, we really want to bring back Savage Sword. We thought it would be an experiment, that we would do 6 issues in that black and white newsprint format, because I think this has come up before. When Marvel had the license last time, they had reached out to retailers and said, we want to do black and white, and we're thinking of doing it magazine sized. And the response they got back from retailers was, no way. Like, we don't want to stock it. It's a pain in the ass to put on the shelves, the bags and the boards and the whole 10 yards. It's not worth it. And that's why Marvel did that full color anthology style series. It wasn't a lack of desire. It was just the economics of it all. And we kind of sort of hell or high water, we wanted to try this thing that we felt like, hewed as close as possible to the original format. And again, we only committed to 6 issues because we thought that's all that the market will be able to bear. And we are so overjoyed that, it just keeps rolling. And now man, Chris Butera has a backlog of material. I've got a bunch of artists and writers who have done stories that have been finished for quite some time. And it's because the different, page counts and the formats and trying to thematically sometimes pull these issues together. Where's it going to go? And, who's going to appear? And then without trying to sound weird, like I'm contracted that I have to be in a certain number of those issues as well. Plus we've got the tie-in issues for, the event book. So those have to take priority. So I sometimes I end up wedging other people out and I feel awkward about that, but it'll all come out, like it's all getting done. Yeah. And some of the stuff I've seen from some of the teams is just, I saw the Liam Sharp stuff really early on and I was like, oh man, we all got to step up our game, because it's so damn good and just so incredible.
Yeah, I'm waiting. I was at Fan Expo. Nick Marinkovich was showing a pinup that I know is supposed to be in there, and it's so familiar in my head. And now I'm like, has it actually been in the magazine? But
I have to be careful too, because we'll have these editorial meetings. I had one last week on the Zoom call, and it's Ashley Hodgkins, our assistant editor, and she's the man. Without her, we'd be doomed, right? Because she's really schedule contracts and budgeting and time and all that stuff, and she's so good at it to the point where I've never had an assistant editor before who knows my convention schedule and is like, I don't want to bother you while you're on the road, so we won't contact you unless it's absolutely necessary and stuff like that. It's just phenomenal. And so, but we're always, whenever we get on calls, it's just like, I think half the call is just sharing art. Just like, you got to see this. Oh man, we got this cover in, or I know, this person, we talked about them doing a thing and here's the preliminary stuff, or here's the painting, or here's the whatever. And I'm just kind of like, my mind is blown, on the just consistent passion that all these artists and creators are putting into the mix. And I feel so insanely fortunate. Oh, thank you, man. Frozen Faith was another one of those ideas that kind of percolated in the back of my mind. And I thought this could be really cool, or I'll screw this up and the fan base will hate me, because that idea of Conan questioning Crom and questioning faith is, not established anywhere in any of the canon, but I felt like we could do it in a way that was respectful and exciting and added a new layer to things, not to improve upon, but just to expand outwards into it's all pastiche in a way. So I'm always extrapolating. And then Doug Braithwaite is just one of my favorite collaborators. He's such a legend and such a gentleman and so phenomenal to work with. And he requested specifically, he wanted to do a story set in the North. Those Frazetta paintings of Conan fighting in the North, those are like tattooed in his brain. And he wanted to do something set there. And I thought, man, the only canon story set up there is Frost Giant's daughter. I don't want to do something. And I thought about the aftermath. I thought about that idea of, well, what is Conan learned, or what happens, post Frost Giant's daughter? And I thought to myself, well, based on the timeline, that could be the first time he ever interacts with the supernatural or interacts with something truly deific. And what would that do to him, And then you start working your way backwards. And I thought, but you can't really do the story without showing the event. Like just doing it in flashback wouldn't do it justice. So it just kept kind of evolving and forming. And I threw the ideas out to Fred and Jay, Fred Malmberg, the owner at Conan Properties, and he was like hesitantly down for it, like wanted to see a tighter outline because obviously we were playing with some other ingredients there. But that's what's been so great is now we have such good trust in the whole team. Like we're all pushing forward, whether that's Chris and Ashley or Marcos or Sean, and just like so many of the team there at Heroic, we're all just trying to make the best damn books we can. And I can't say no pressure, but we're not perfect. No one's ever perfect. But what feels so good is that we've all got that same goal in mind. And if we're arguing or if we're compromising, it's always with that intent of, but what's the end result? What's the book going to be at the end of this all? And why do we need to do it this way? How is this going to make something hopefully that lasts? That's kind of the key there. If you make a really strong series, like I want that Conan #1, that Bound in Blackstone and everything that comes after it to be the on-ramp for the readership, going forward as long as we can. I don't want a new #1 every year. I don't want to have to hit the reset button and all that stuff, because as we've seen in the superhero market, I think there's diminishing returns there. And I think that it just starts to eat its own tail,
Yeah. Just to follow up still on the Free Comic Book Day. Yeah. So it is Skullface that is the book. So this is your homework, everybody. We are excited for that. And so people will be familiar perhaps with Steve Costigan. There was a great story that you and Dilator did in the
a different issue. Steve Costigan, that's Sailor right. Steve Costigan, as opposed to what we're jokingly in the office calling Soldier Steve Costigan, like
or Steven.
Steven. Yeah. And that was another one of those things that I seeded pretty early, where I put it into Savage 10, where we've got that Sailor Steve story. And he mentions on that first page, not to be confused with my cousin who fought in the big war, and that was very much by design. I also seeded when we did issue 12 of Conan, and we show the origin of Thulsa Doom, and he calls himself Cathulos of Atlantis, right? Like that was very much me putting in the connective tissue for Skullface. Nice and early. Yeah. And so
Peter's asking, do you read the Titan pastiche novels, and might you write one yourself? And that was a question I got from somebody else. So will you do a short again?
Yeah. So what's happened is every one of those, I have to send my outlines really early over to Titan, because their fiction division is the ones that are lining up those tie-in novels, and we want them to do that balancing act of tying into the broader mythology and the things that I'm establishing in the comics, but also that they can stand on their own, hopefully, as just damn good, sword and sorcery adventure. And they've, tried a few different authors out. And so I get all the outlines for them. And I haven't had to like veto anything really hard. In the first one, and whose name just escapes me, it was funny because that one was a really tight turnaround. I had to do the outline for Battle of the Blackstone while they were developing that novel. And it was funny because they sent the author all the stuff that I had done on year 1, like 1 to 12. And the cool thing is the first outline that came back was essentially a bunch of the similar kind of stuff where I was going with Blackstone. And he was like, oh, you could do this and you could do this, and these guys could all get together like the Howard Avengers. And I was like, no, that's what I'm doing. Like, you got to do something else. And so we went back and forth on that one quite a bit, figuring out how it was all going to work. And then from then on, I've been planning out further and further ahead. So the outline for Tides of the Tyrant King's been done for over a year now. Wow. And so they were able to get that to a novelist and plan out those things. So I'll always see the outline and I just sort of give it a nod and, looks good. Sometimes I'm reading through the book, but I'm not going over it like with a fine-tooth comb. That's Chris Butera and the fiction editor, whose name escapes me at this moment. And they'll usually flag something, or they'll just double check with me in terms of like, oh, this is going to be in here, or does that work with what you've got? Or, is there any more ingredients we could sprinkle in there? And so I'll send them notes back and forth. And that's kind of my involvement on it. I don't want to be overly controlling, in the same way that when we did the Blackstone tie-in stories in issue 4 of Savage Sword, I brought in, other writers and other creative teams. And I said, kind of go wild, just make sure the symbol, arrives in the story and that we use these characters. And then I realized that with Scourge, I needed a much tighter focus because we were going to be referencing very specific kinds of things. And the same kind of stuff with Tides. Like I knew, obviously I had to do the Brissa story in issue 4 because I had to show how she had survived, at the end of Bound in Blackstone and stuff like that. But each of the stories now has a very, it's much tighter in terms of how it fits into the architecture of the whole thing. I loved writing the short story in Savage Sword #1. It's one of the most stressful and amazing things I've ever worked on. I mean, to be in the first issue of that series on this 50th anniversary, to be writing a short story in the style of Robert E. Howard, Joe Jusko cover, like it's mind bending. But also one of the most stressful things I think I've ever worked on. Like, hey, Lion, how's it going, buddy? Good to see you. And so the productivity versus output on that prose piece is probably one of the worst equations I've ever done.
Oh, yeah.
Like I spent so much time on that thing and I sweated over every word, and I like paranoid to the point where Jeff had to call me and be like, calm down, it's good. And I was like, good's not good enough. Like I was just freaking out, you know? And that being said, it was really fun and it was a really cool thing. And I am interested in doing more. And I've been talking off and on with Titan's Prose division, but I don't have anything imminent. I don't have it. You know, the joke is that that'll be my retirement plan, is that I just hang back and fully lean into my grizzled pulp writer phase and just like hack away on the keyboard with a novel.
It's not like you're busy doing anything else.
Yeah. That's the moment when I go, artists, I don't need any damn artists. And I'll just start like pounding away on that because I think
you ruined my vision.
That's right. Yeah. So I don't know. It's possible. I don't know. When will we see Brissa again? Reveal
that.
She's coming. I mean, you know, she's like, what's the right word? She's gestating right now, I guess, quite literally. So yeah, she's definitely obviously she's part of the overall plan. And the picks have a big role to play. And, you know, everyone keeps asking me what's going on with Bren McMorn. And he's one of the big cards yet to come, to the point where I've asked Chris not to do anything with Bran. And he's like, we've got all these other writers that want to do Bran stuff for Savage Sword. And so I've kind of been a bit of a monster about that, where I've been like looking that stuff over really close because I'm holding him in reserve. Like there's a very specific reason for that. And I'm excited to, it's all going to play. It's going to be a lot of fun.
I'm excited to read that because I think I know what story it's going to be.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have a good handle on what we've been building towards in that regard. And again, it's all Robert E. Howard canon. We're just sort of trying to expand that tapestry and make it feel as expansive and amazing and mythic as possible. Yeah.
Here's a nice comment. Good evening, fellas. Just got the notification. My Conan Volume 7 paperback pre-order is finally on its way. And now I stumble on 3 of my favorite creators chatting. What a day. Thank you so
awesome.
much.
I literally got my Savage Sword 4 in the mail today. So I just cracked these suckers open, which is nice. Yeah, it turned out great. I love the printing on them. They just look so good.
Yeah, I only have number 1 so far. Are you
man,
grabbing them or
they're
not?
Good.
I'm just getting the singles off the shelf. So
nothing wrong with that. You know, the singles, I mean, they feel good. They're the right. They smell right. They look right. They're good. Lion, how are you, sir?
Oh, Matt. Tired.
I thought, oh no, should I have sent a reminder?
No, it's because of time zones. It's 7:30 right now for me.
Right.
I was like, oh, we're gonna start at 8. That's fine. It's in like 30 minutes.
Eastern, man.
And I was like,
oh, just one off there. I like the shirt though. I appreciate that you came. I didn't wear the band T-shirt this time, but
I got you covered. So
yeah, there you go.
I'm good, man. It's been a lot. I graduated on Tuesday, which is nice.
That's amazing.
Congrats.
MBA program finally. Thanks.
Finally.
Yeah. It's been 10 years, dude, of college. It's been
oh my gosh.
Rough.
He's got his doctorate going there. Yeah. Amazing.
Oh, that's awesome. Good stuff.
No, my dad might actually shoot me if I go for a doctorate.
Are you looking forward to Howard Days?
Oh, of course. I'm so ready. Awesome. I got PTO and everything already, so
awesome.
Just can't wait for
I'm sure everyone who's checked in on the live stream knows about Robert E. Howard Days, but if for whatever reason you don't, it is like the family reunion barbecue of the fandom.
All 4 of us will be here.
Yeah,
the 4 of us will be there. This
is
Dan's first year.
Yeah, 2024, I was pretty nervous about it. You know, Jeff really kind of brought me over the hump on that, where I was just like, man, some of these fans are going to be like line and verse, and they're just going to be really difficult and specific. And don't get me wrong, I love this stuff and I study and I work really hard at it. But you know, when you're on the spot and people are just sort of like firing questions at you, you can sort of blank out sometimes. And I just didn't want. Yeah, you know, there's that weird thing of I don't know what people's expectations are. I'm just a guy. I love writing this stuff. It means a lot to me and I work really hard at it. But at the end of the day, you know, I wouldn't say it's a job, because it's different from any other kind of career pursuit. I'm very passionate about it, but there's also commerce and business and all sorts of other publishing market forces that are out of my control. You know, it's the same kind of thing when people come to you and they ask about the movie stuff and they're just like, why hasn't, you know, Arnold done King Conan? And I'm like, well, let me just call my buddy Arnold. Like, I don't I don't have control of those things. Fred Malmberg doesn't have control of those things. You know, we're all trying to make stuff happen or trying to build the best thing. And it seems so obvious when you're within the fandom and you go, why can't they do, you know, proper Howard adaptation? And why don't they do this kind of video game? And why isn't this the biggest damn thing in the world? Because we love it so much and we're so passionate about it. And, you know, I've been kind of in the room, or I've been involved in some of those conversations, and you're trying to bring, you know, these companies on side. You're trying to invest in them, the depth of what you're trying to do, but not scare them off. You know what I mean? Like, you want to assure them that this is a commercially viable entertainment thing, but also, you know, that there's something more kind of beating under the surface, and how much of that you kind of have to compromise on to see any of these things kind of come to life. It can be kind of soul sharing. Like, you know, on my own creator-owned books, I've been in the room when we've been pitching them for TV and movie stuff. And even when people say they're all really excited, you know, until they're signed on the dotted line, and sometimes not even then, you know, these things can fall apart so quickly. And so you have to both be incredibly passionate and driven, but every time you put your heart on your sleeve about it, you know, you're about to get kind of wrecked when it doesn't go forward. And so I see that kind of push and pull all the time with this stuff.
Now that this will be your second Howard Days, how do you feel the energy feels different? Like, do you?
It feels, you know, at least I know my way around, both in terms of the general geography and, you know, sort of who that inner circle is and where they're going to kind of be at. And so I feel good about that, which is nice. Yeah. It feels a lot more kind of familiar in that regard. Because I was going, you know, we'd had the series going for about just under a year at that point when I went. I think I was more nervous also. I was in the middle of trying to finalize my contract for the long-term stuff. And I was really uptight about, you know, the Blackstone event and everything else that was going on. And now I'm in a much more kind of organized groove, and we've got so much kind of under our feet at this point. Like, I can look in the rearview mirror and go, oh man, well, that has all worked out well. You know, something like the Nomad, like issue 25, that fully painted issue, I feel like that's the kind of story that you hope sticks around and that people look back fondly on, you know, many years from now. And that's a real pillar. You know, it's something that we put a lot of time and effort into, and I can sort of hold that up and go, this is, you know, one of those peaks on this amazing journey, and comes from the right place. And I really put my heart into it. And obviously Alex put his soul into those pages. And the result was, you know, more than we even could have imagined in the best way possible. And that's the kind of stuff that you want to be able to do, that it's both my job, but it's something that I'm so, you know, proud of over and over and over again.
Yeah. Are you part of any of the official programming this year at Howard Days? I'm trying to recall. There is a website that has the agenda.
I told Jeff I was going, and he essentially said, well, you're just going to get pulled into all sorts of stuff. And I was like, okay. And that's the thing. It's so different from a convention, right? Like the formality or lack thereof, you know, like it's so everyone hanging out and chatting. I remember there was a couple people, I was there for like over half a day, and they seemed to like walk around me like there was a force field. And I was like, oh, did I do something wrong? And they were just like, well, I didn't want to bother you. And I'm like, well, literally, this is why I'm here. Like, I want to chat about this stuff. And, you know, if I'm actively chatting with other people, like, don't interrupt. But like, otherwise, we're all just here to kind of hang out. It is this big, the weirdest thing for me was that feeling of going to a family reunion and I'm the weird cousin that showed up with a deed for a tract of land. Like, it was just that strange.
Speculator.
Who the hell's this guy? You know, like, oh, or this guy thinks he's, you know, all that. And that was obviously, that's not how I've ever sort of approached it. I'm confident in what we're doing and the plan. And, you know, when the books come out, I know, you know, if we've got the thunder or not, and that's kind of a good feeling. But on the other hand, I always come at this as I'm a fan kind of first. And that's how I've always read the stuff. But the same thing holds true, I think, with all my writing, whether it's Dungeons and Dragons or, you know, the Marvel superhero stuff or just about anything else I've done. And sometimes that has got me wounded, where because I'm a fan, I will, you know, you want everyone to, this is true of any creative pursuit. You want people to love you, and you want people to love everything you're doing, and you care about this stuff. So you want everyone else to care the same way you do. And I've worked with people in the industry who are very mercenary about this stuff, and they're very kind of cold and calculating, and they look at their careers like, and ostensibly they may be more successful than me, but they sure don't seem happy. You know, like they look at each project and they go, okay, how am I stacking this perfect version of this fortress of this idealized career? And you're like, do you have fun writing that story? That's not to say fun is your only goal here, but like,
it helps.
Yeah, it sure helps a lot. You know?
And people seem to like it. So we'll rifle through a few comments here.
Sure.
So yeah.
That Free Comic Day 2023, man. Our bar that we set was the old Dark Horse free Conan #0. I can't remember if it was a Free Comic Day or not, but that Conan 0 they did for promo, you know, the Kurt Busiek, Carrie Nord classic. And I was like, well, that's one of the greatest Conan comics of all time. So we just need to shoot for that. You know, as you do. But I said, like, if we can't even get anywhere close, then you know, we're starting on the wrong foot. What I like about Titans Run is how it combines aspects and develop. Yep. How do you decide what to expand without breaking it? I wish I could tell you I had a simple formula. Like, I just sit there and I go, X amount of movie mixed in with pastiche mixed in with Howard. But honestly, I go back to the source as much as possible. The original Howard stories are always the watchword, and I never want to pave over them with anything that I'm doing. And then beyond that, things like bringing in the Atlantean sword that was my idea. That was not like any kind of cold, hard commercial choice. That was just like, look, it's such an iconic visual, and it's become so tightly associated with the character at this point. I feel like it should be in the mix, in the same way that you would look at Kryptonite is part of the Superman story, but it wasn't in the original comics. And he jumped instead of flew in the original comics. And the Daily Planet wasn't called the Daily Planet, and Jimmy Olsen didn't exist. Like, those things are now part of Superman. They're inseparable from the thing. And I feel like the Atlantean sword isn't Conan's weapon. He's not running around wielding it every single time, but that it's part of that broader mythology, and that its visual is strong enough to be considered part and parcel of the whole thing. And the same sort of thing with Thulsa Doom, that name and that necromancer and all that it's inspired, everything from Skeletor and every other lich in, you know, fantasy and Dungeons and Dragons, that Thulsa Doom is part of Conan just as much as it is Kull the Conqueror. And so let's make that an explicit part of the thing. Let's build that right into the central pillar of our idea, because then because I think it works really well, and I think it gives me a really cool ingredient as a villain, but also because millions of people who've seen the movie think that he's the Conan villain, and the name Thulsa Doom is associated with Conan the Barbarian. And so I'm just like, it's already there. Why fight against that when we can just go with the flow and make it the most Howardian version, you know, possible?
Yeah. It is interesting with like soft canon like that, like Tothamon being like his big bad, and
right?
He has a son named Khan.
Yes,
that's not Howard, but
it's so weird. You know, the Tothamon of it all is very odd, obviously, in that sense, because there's these hints of, you know, in the original Howard stories, Conan's like the fly in the ointment. Like, he's this troublemaker who does kind of wreck the machinations of gods and demons and necromancers, but he's not necessarily the grand hero. I mean, they hint a little bit in Phoenix on the Sword that he has a great destiny to, you know, to play in the future, but they don't really, it's all very murky in that kind of sense. And a lot of the other stories are just kind of, for lack of a better term, capers. You know, they really are kind of standalone capers. And that's cool, but obviously, since we're doing serialized entertainment, that feeling of, well, where's it all going has to be at least part of the conversation, you know. And that was one of the things that we had to decide early on when I was putting together the proposal was, okay, you know, the marvel of it all, the newness of making Conan in the 70s, they had that going for them. The first time adapting all that stuff to comics, expanding out, using the pastiche, just everything. That's always going to be the bedrock foundation. We can't really do it better than that. And then the dark horse of it all, where they were trying to at first do chronological every single story and fill it in without any gaps. And that was really ambitious and intense. And it's like, well, I don't want to do that either, because again, you're just trying to follow in the dust of what other people have done. So how do you take the feeling of the Bronze Age Conan comics? How do you take the badassery and the mature, you know, elements of the Dark Horse stuff, but give it its own flair? And you know, Howard was always going to be the key, going back to a more Weird Tales kind of format where we can jump around the timeline, but then having the benefit of saying, well, but what if it all leads to something? Well, what if it does have some grandiose mythic air and villainy and pointing people towards that? And that was when we were talking about, well, what are those pieces? What are the pieces in the original Robert E. Howard stories? And really, I didn't come up with the Blackstone of it. That was like Fred Malmberg and those guys. And they said, well, there's this thing, there's this, you know, MacGuffin. And I was like, okay, but what does that represent? And then it was, well, okay, some kind of eldritch evil. Okay. And then you start building and building and building. And like, one of the ideas was, you know, when do we introduce that and how do we introduce that? And I just hit this weird point where I was like, I think I'd seen one of those interviews with Robert Kirkman where he had talked about doing Invincible. And the original idea for Invincible was that you wouldn't find out that his dad was a bad guy until like issue 25. And they were like, the book's going to be canceled by like issue 8. Like, what you've got to do this thing now. And so I was, you know, I had this frenetic energy of, no one gets to write Conan twice. I've gotten this insane opportunity to do it again. I've got to hit with just like an atom bomb. Like, we have to go as big and crazy as possible. If we don't put Thulsa Doom in there, if we don't have the Atlantean sword in there, if we don't play with time and big crazy stuff, it's just going to feel like, you know, it's not must-read entertainment every month, you know? Yeah. And so I know some people, when we did the Blackstone in the first 4 issues, they were like, okay, Conan fights a zombie army or whatever. And the next story arc starts with the heist, and they were like, Blackstone again. And I was just like, man, I don't know how much track I've got. Like, literally, I'm just throwing the meat over my shoulders and the wolves are chasing me. And I'm like, got to make the most exciting narrative, you know, I can, and lay down this track and hope that people can see that we're building towards something, that it's not just a random thing that we threw in there for the heck of it. And, you know, now looking back, you could say, oh, we could have teased it out. We could have had a much slower build, but then would it have sold? Would people have cared? Would they have followed along? You know, there's no way to know.
Yeah. 2 + 2 is 5 we've kind of touched on this, and it's kind of funny just because it's so Howard.
Sure.
Do we have any concerns keeping Steven and Steve separate in readers' minds?
I mean,
now,
they look
different.
They act different. Yeah.
Every character in Howard's books is Steve.
Sure.
Everybody's named Steve.
Yeah. Or the Johns. There's so many Johns. You know, John Kirwan and John Conrad, and like it's John Gordon, and just like it's a wild number of those kinds of things. So sometimes it's interesting because I'm taking characters and I'm making them closer to, you know, I'm bringing them together. I'm doing that with Skullface. There's a character that we're going to have that's not in the original story, but I feel like just dovetails in really beautifully. And so I'm adding more connective tissue between stuff. And in the case of Steve and Steven, I didn't want to change Sailor Steve. And we just really wanted to do a Sailor Steve story because it was just he's such an amazing character. And I love his narrative style and the playfulness of it. And when we knew that Rob De La Torre was going to draw it, I was just like, oh my God, like I've got to do this boxing ridiculous tale. And so, Stephen Costigan is he's the mythic important one because Skullface is a really important pillar to our overall plan. Sailor Steve was not a goof, but it was more like indulgent. I just really want to write this character.
It was really fun though. It was a great
I did. You know what?
Good.
It was some of the most fun I've had writing this entire time. Writing that first person narrative and trying to get that vocabulary, and that once the artwork came in, I was just like, I got to live up to this incredible, it was like Toth by way of Kubert by way of Buscema. Like it was just this beautiful pulpy, looking pages. And I couldn't give it anything less than my best, even though it was kind of a goof and the whole story is ridiculous and the dog eats the ring and barfs it up. Like I wanted it to feel like one of those capers. If you get a chance to read the Sailor Steve story, they have that kind of maniacal air where everything's going wrong and he's just going to punch his way out, And so that was very much indulgent, but I feel like interjecting the serpent ring and all that kind of stuff was, I had a couple people ask me about it. They're like, well, how did the ring get from the bottom of the ocean, to eventually into the scourge of the serpent? And you're like, well, sometimes you don't need to see people buying the shoes to run the marathon. Like maybe I'll tell that story someday, or we'll have some scuba diver pull the thing up, but I'm not too worried about it, especially in the mythic era of it all. Yeah.
So we got a kind of a two-part here. It's two different people. There's so many questions, so we're we're gonna try to bring.
I feel like Lion and Dan are just having to hang back here. I apologize, guys.
That's okay.
Okay.
So Jaden says, so don't answer yet though. So the plan goes to 50 is what Jaden's asking. Now, Lord of Lex says, can't wait until Jim is 51.
So my contract continues through to Conan the Barbarian number 50, a 4th event miniseries, and I'm contracted for the equivalent of sort of 2 features in Savage Sword per year. The tie-in issue that I'm writing, all of it, the 64 pages myself, kind of evolved naturally out of that thing. So that's my contract, and it ends assuming that the publishing schedule holds tight, but quality is more important than shipping absolutely on time. In theory, end of 2027 would be when we hit. I could see it probably sliding a few months, especially if one of the things we've talked about, the sheer amount of plot points and things we have to cover in those final few issues and the final event series. When we contracted the artist who's going to be drawing the 4th event book, I basically said, well, each issue is 22 pages, but the last issue, that's going to be more. I can already tell you that's a lie. Like, I just know we're going to get bigger and broader. And so, again, I want this stuff to last outside of just absolutely hitting that deadline. I'm not trying to miss any dates by any means. But that's what I'm contractually obligated for. And I want Heroic Signatures to feel confident whatever they decide to do next. If they want to do a whole new creative team and sort of clear the decks, if they want to pick up with issue 51, they've got those options kind of in front of them. And we're all in the loop and we're talking about it. And so that's kind of the key for me. I'm not creatively burned out, but I also don't want to accordion out this particular endpoint. At least what we started with issue 0 and the Pictish Blade and the Blackstone and all that stuff, that will finish at issue 50, right? And that final event miniseries, they're going to kind of come together into this hopefully grandiose epic in all the best ways possible. And pay off in a way that hopefully pays, homage to the greatness of Howard's writing and the worlds and the characters that he has put together. Until we stick that landing, until you guys tell me if we did it, then that will be, what decides it. but we've got all the pieces in place and they've given me the power to do it. So if it screws up, it's all my fault. But on the other hand, it's like, is that the end of my commitment to Conan? I don't know. At this moment, that is a horrific decision, for Jim from 8 months from now, I guess. I don't know. It's like, we're actively talking about it, and they're keeping me in the loop and I'm keeping them in the loop, and we all love working together. And so I don't want to just wear out my welcome, but on the other hand, I have no shortage of ideas, but I do want to put a cap on this big thing that we built together, that the readership is entrusted in me to do from 1 to 50, and those 4 kind of event miniseries, and what they represent and why, and what we're trying to say about Howard stories and pulp storytelling and heroism and sacrifice and all that kind of stuff. That if I don't put a cap on that, then I feel like it's a real shame, because I remember when Busick was doing Dark Horse, he had that, the No-O Prince. He had the prince that was essentially hearing the stories. That was the narrative container that they had. And they kind of dropped that after a certain point when Kurt left the book, and they tried to pick up some of those threads that Truman and those guys did, but it just felt like it kind of petered out. And it's not to say that they did wrong by it. I felt like they did amazing adaptations and all kinds of other stuff, but there was a weird kind of a promise there of like, who's this Stygian vizier and what's that all represent, and how's that going to tie into a future point in time? And it's like, I didn't want the Blackstone to feel like it was just this abstraction. And when we, brought the woeful eye into the mix, and when we paid off this is a real thing, this is whatever killed James Allison, and these are the Blackstone beasts and all this sort of stuff. It's not, I didn't do that lightly. It's because it means something and because it goes somewhere. And if I never pay that off, I don't want that to be like the ultimate blue balls, for the fandom. Yeah.
This is a fun question. We'll take it to be funny ways.
So just to let people know,
ask Jim why he sucks at Conan Exiles.
So last Friday I played Conan Exiles Enhanced, and what happened was I've never played the game. I play all sorts of video games, and I played really, really hard video games. I've platinumed a bunch of the Dark Souls games and like stuff like that, but I purposefully went into this with no prior knowledge. Like, I went out of my way to not read starter guides and to not read tutorials and to not know what I was doing, because that was kind of the joke of the premise, was like, how much of an idiot can I be, sort of going into this. And if you've never live streamed a game before, it's a really weird feeling, because you're playing a video game and you have, I don't know, dozens of people just commenting the whole, like a peanut gallery, telling you, asking you questions, in this case, telling me that they love my comics, or asking me weird esoteric, Robert E. Howard questions. But I'm also like a naked dude running around the desert, trying to find food and pick plants and eat bugs and all this stuff. And there's a joke to it. Like, I'm purposefully kind of making an ass of myself, but also I'm not reading. Like, if I was playing on my own and I'd click on a menu, I'd like read it carefully, but I don't want people to be bored. So I just kept cycling through stuff, and I missed all sorts of basic, controls or inventory management, or like following the journeys in order to do the thing in order and learn it the way you're supposed to learn it. And people were laughing at it. And so I'm laughing at it. And I had people, literally, my phone was blowing up, and I looked, and friends of mine are texting me trying to give me advice on how to play Conan Exiles. And I'm like, no, I don't want to know. Like, if I die, I die. Like, that's kind of the joke. And so I'm probably going to play again this week. and again, I'm like purposely just picking up from where I left off, and we'll see how stupid it gets. I had people like sending me stuff, and they're like, if you go northwest, you have to grab this knife. And I was just like, no, don't tell me. Like, I want to imagine that the character, who is named Hubris, by the way, is wandering through this jungle and just gonna die, like imminently going to die and get his leg ripped off by a crocodile or whatever. Like that's the joke. See, like the guy who writes Conan is a moron, and this will be fun. Like if you want me to stream, I don't know, like getting the platinum on Bloodborne or something, which I've already done, or playing, Sekiro Shadows Die Twice or Elden Ring, like I can do that, but that's kind of not the premise. I'm kind of just being a jackass about it. So
I think the question was in levity, so we can accept it in the spirit.
I suck. I know, don't worry. I'm excited for the future eventers of hubris. Let's put it that way.
There you go. So hello from Kentucky, from the Cromcast.
I haven't heard from those guys in a while.
So there was also a question posted to me on Reddit, and I don't know if this is the same Cromcast guy, but on Reddit is Wintermute 1000, I believe is the handle. And he says, ask Jim who his favorite Cromcaster is.
Oh, come on.
I'm thinking you don't have to answer that, but I thought that was
fair. That's not fair. Those guys are great, by the way. And what's awesome too is that they start every podcast, or at least they did when I was guest on the show. They were talking about what booze they were drinking, and we were all talking about our favorite whiskeys and all kinds of stuff like that. What's funny is their love of pulp is really addictive. I love that they love this stuff, and that they I think it was sort of like a shtick at the start, and now they're genuine fans, which is always kind of nice.
Yeah, so it happens. CLS Rocks. This is the person asked about Exiles. So who is Dragonero? So Dragonero, I believe, is an Italian comic hero.
Yeah,
and of course, it came out today.
Yeah,
and it looks.
So
really
I didn't work
great
on that comic, but it's
it's
a crossover that came out, I want to say, a year or two ago. So this Dragonero character exists in the European market, and exactly.
Okay, I had a feeling that Lion would be more familiar than the rest of us.
And so, he's
Spanish, or is that in Italian? You have Lion.
There's a Mexican Spanish edition.
Okay.
Amazing. So he's been around for a while, and they had the material, and it was really well regarded in those markets, and they thought, why not give it a shot? The fan base. I think this is one of the things that's so exciting. When we were talking about the original publishing plan, and we were, one of the things, Savage Sword was in the conversation right from the start, but it was very much like, we have to put out a year's worth of Conan, like 12 issues, and make them amazing, and prove to the fan base that we've got their, quality in mind, and that we're going to earn that $4 a month and what may have you before we expand out. But when you think now about the fact that you got Savage Sword, you got Savage Sword Reforged, you got Solomon Kane, like these, rolling miniseries now as well. And now the event miniseries that we've been doing, and that the fan base is following along with us and trusts us. That you can put out the Conan Dragonero, and people are like, yeah, let's give it a shot, man. These guys, they don't waste my time. They don't waste my money. That's kind of the faith that the fan base is putting in us, and we're trying to make it, just reflect back as much as we can.
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely going to pick it up just because it's Conan, but Titan did a great job.
And some cool stuff.
Signatures. Just they integrate it with the Lord of Kings intro, and so they make it look, there's some continuity. It's Lorenzo Nuti. His art looks great on the inside, so I was happy to grab mine today. Shout
totally.
out! I just on New Comic Book Day, I go to Thunderstruck Books. She's so great. They have everything for me. So just shout out Thunderstruck Books. But I would recommend this. I haven't read it yet, but it looks gorgeous on the inside.
Yeah, the book's really fun, and I think it's a little more high fantasy with your dragons and your magic stuff, but that's cool too. I mean, I'm the D&D guy, like I totally get it, and I think it's really fun stuff. Am I helping with the Cull series?
Yeah.
I'm not directly involved with the Cull series. I can't talk about who the creative team is. I think they're holding that in reserve until San Diego, our big panel at San Diego.
Yeah.
But I know what's going on with it in general, and they're also doing that thing where they're making sure it doesn't step on my toes or intersect badly with anything that I have been building, or any possible future plans I may have with the Exile of Atlantis.
Yeah, Sean and Jeff have been talking about it for 2 years.
I know.
What's that? I know. I think
yes, we talked about it.
They had the conversations were really close at one point with a particular creative team, and I think it ended up scuttling. And so they thought an announcement was imminent, and then they sort of pivoted on it. So I can't really say much more than that. Obviously, Zurcher's stuff on Solomon Kane is rock solid. The best compliment that I got was that they were like, man, the Z's are really taking care of us. Zub on Conan and Zurcher on, Solomon Kane. We just got to find other Z creators and everything going to be okay. And you're like, but
you were saying earlier, Zdarsky.
Zdarsky is a
will not be writing Call the Conqueror, by the way. Probably it. He's got 2 TV shows in development with Sex Criminals and with Stillwater. I think he's probably out of our league at this point. Yeah.
So we had Tristan ask if there's any plans of being in Phoenix, Arizona.
I haven't been to Phoenix in a long time. I did Phoenix. I don't know. I want to say Phoenix Comic-Con, oh God, probably a decade ago. I have not been to Arizona in quite some time. I would be up for it. I would be up for a con down there. It's just a matter of schedule. Yeah. The exciting part is that with the book in 11 languages, I'm getting offers for shows like I've never had before. I mentioned, that just like last year, I went to Spain. I did the UK a couple times. There's been talk of potentially going to France or Germany at some point in time. I guess I can hint at the fact I've got a potential trip to Australia planned for 2027, which is really, really amazing. And it's not the kind of trip where you obviously just want to go and come back. I did that last year with Mumbai, India. And man, that jet lag absolutely vaporized me because I did, it was a 2-day convention and I had 1 day on either end. So it was essentially 4 days, but with, 20 hours of travel either way. And it warped me. Like I was like an inhuman by the end of it. The jet lag was so bad. And so if we're going to travel that far, A, I want to go with my wife, and B, I want to really make a trip of it. So, we'd probably be going there for 3-4 weeks at a minimum. And if we're on that side of the world, then you're sort of like, well, what else could we see? Where else could we go? And so that's the kind of thing with the international stuff. You never know. You want to build as much of that itinerary out as possible and try and make it extra special.
Like just comments that the nice thing about Savage Sword of Conan is it lets so many artists check off something from their bucket list.
Absolutely. And that's what's so fun for us about some of the variant covers as well. You get artists who have always wanted to draw it, or classic artists we get to bring back. More Savage Sword, absolutely. Issue 16 is all me. So all 64 pages of Savage Sword number 16 ties into the Tides of the Tyrant King. I can tell you there will be 3 stories. The feature story, oh man, I want to tell you the creative team so bad, but I can't. They're all wonderful. But yeah, they're going to tie all in together with the feature story is obviously Conan related, but I think it's got one of the most fun kind of twists in that we've done in quite some time. It does call back, it does harken back to an earlier story arc in the same kind of way. Not the same way, but in a similar fashion to what we did with the feature story for Savage 10, but this one, it's really, really fun stuff. And then the other 2 stories are other Howard characters who are getting the limelight and going to be appearing. And much like the boxing story, there's an indulgent one in there where we're playing with a genre I haven't played with before, which is really fun. And then the third one, what's a yes? No, not the spicy, but that'd be cool. But the third one is a really important bit of backstory that will plug right into Tides and gives you extra context for some of the cool supernatural stuff that we have teed up for that series. So yeah.
I'm pretty sure everybody knows that's here. This is number 14 that came out last Wednesday. Dwellers.
Ivan Gilman, what a beast. It's so funny. Ivan, the way he came on board was really cool. He had approached me. He just sent me a message out of the blue, I think on Instagram. And he was like, I'm this artist doing stuff for the French market, but my soul, like I grew up on Conan and this stuff means the world to me. Could I do a pinup for Savage Sword of Conan? And I'm like, well, I don't control who gets to draw the books and whatever, but your art looks fantastic. And he had, he'd been doing these Napoleonic graphic novels in the French market, and they're so particular, like the uniforms and the time periods and the geography, like they were just killing him, but he was putting it all on the page. And I passed the stuff over to Chris, and we really loved what he was doing. And I said, is your aspiration just to do a pinup? And he was like, well, is there more? I said, I would love to do a story with you if the possibility presented itself. And then the original plan was to have Jonas Scharf draw Scourge, and Jonas message us and let us know that he had signed an exclusive with Marvel, that they had made him an offer he couldn't refuse, and he was going to get to work on some of his favorite superheroes. And, obviously we told him to go for it. We didn't have him locked down for an exclusive contract or anything. And so at that moment, the field was open, and I was like, man, it just seems like a blessing. Like Ivan just showed up at the perfect time. Would you be interested in maybe doing this thing? And we threw that event, book out to him. And I said, it's going to be ambitious, but the good thing is, man, you're really good at taking that reference material and running with it, like the different time periods and the costuming and the geography and the architecture. And like, I feel like he's the right guy. And so, but that script was like, kind of really tight script. It was this clockwork beast that I had built because we needed to have the parallels plugging in from those 3 different time periods and those 3 different stories, when you've got the Shadow Kingdom and the Hunter of the Ring, and just like, it was God in the Pole, like it was a lot. And so I felt like he did a phenomenal job, but we also like held him so tightly to the grindstone to hit this very specific format. And so when it was all said and done, we were like, if we didn't kill him, maybe he wants to do more stuff with us. And he said, my dream is to do Savage Sword. Like, that was the stuff I grew up on. That's my youth. And I said, I'll do whatever you want. I'll do a Savage Sword. I get to do a Savage Sword feature at least once a year. It's yours, man. Like, and I said, between 30 and 48 pages. And he goes, well, then it'll be 48. And I was just like, okay. And I said, what time period? And he goes, I would love to do something with Conan leading the Zwagir. And I was just like, really? Because that is not most people's favorite period of Conan, like desert, warriors. Cool, man. That's great. So I'm thinking to myself, all right, it's somewhere kind of a Witch Shall Be Born, Black Colossus-ish kind of stuff. And I started just rereading those stories and brainstorming and going back and forth with them. And I said, okay, giant monster and, all this kind of stuff. What do we want to do with it? And he just started designing things. And then I had that weird mental realization that Conan had been, crucified. And I was like, wait, his hands and feet are all fucked up. Like he should be wounded. Like, whatever happened to those? And that's the kind of germ that just becomes a story where you're like, oh, that'll be at the center of what we need to do with this. Yeah.
So like, was this you or Ivan? Because
that's all.
Is so tight.
Oh, it's crazy. Well, that's just Ivan. Like, I literally said they get pulled under, to an underground city. And I said, make it, whatever you want, like however you want. Like, I did it. I did full script for Scourge. For this, I did plot style. So I was very, very open-ended. And I said, you set the kind of architectural flair, what you want to do, what the people are wearing and how they're wearing it. There's obviously a mystery there to be paid off, and stuff will be revealed that it is not what it seems to be, but it doesn't really matter what that looks like. You make it whatever you think is cool. And I said, there's a central temple location that should be visible from most of the underground city. But again, you tell me how big the scope you want to make it. And he just went all out because he's Ivan and he's amazing. And so those pages came in and I was just like, that works. Like, most of my notes were, oh God, the only thing that I had to laugh about was there's no colorist. So at least you're not handing that to a colorist and going, you poor bastard, because sometimes you give someone a hyper detailed page and you're just like, good night. Like, this thing's going to kill you.
Is it freeing for you to write like a Savage Sword story? Like, is it a break versus the monthly, or is it, is there a different mindset?
Yeah. The page count's a lot of fun, right? Because you can get, when I say indulgent, I don't mean it in a bad way. Like, you can give them every big moment the kind of depth and breadth that you want, which is fun. And in this case, we had the container 48 pages. Like, you could have told that same story in 22 pages, but we could just make everything hit more. We could just give it that much more intensity and that much bigger of a visual. Oh, thank you, man. Conan has always been great, and Howard has always been great. And I wish everybody knew. That's really the kind of thing, you know, that I feel we're trying to replug into the nature of these adventure stories and the excitement at its very core. But yeah, the Savage Sword format's a ton of fun. The short stories are fun too, like we were talking about with the Costigan, where you can just kind of go buck with it, and the kind of thing where I can play with form and function, like, you know, and sometimes do the deep cut of continuity or something like that, Brissa story, or something that's just playful like the Costigan stuff. Even the war poems and stuff like that is such a fun little bit of business. Early on, the way that happened is another little, like the way that originally I was going to have a comic story in issue 1 of Savage Sword, and we figured out very quickly that the story with Richard Pace was going to be bigger and take more time than we had, and it wasn't the one we wanted in issue 1. And I was like, man, if I'm not in issue 1, part of me is going to die, because, you know, we worked so hard to get this thing off the ground. And that was when Chris said, Matt said, can you do
the prose,
you know, the prose story? And I thought, well, God, I'm a fool, but yeah, I have to. And then there was a thing where I just said, man, you know, I would love to contribute to as many issues as possible. And they were, I think, lining up issue 3, and they were like, well, issue 3 is done except for like a couple pinups. Do you want to do a poem? And I was like, oh, that would be ridiculous. Like, I don't even know if I could do it. And then it was like a day and a half later, I think I had it, and I sent it to them, and I'm like, how's this? And they're just like, well, it seems to be pouring out of you. And I don't know if that's desperation or excitement or everything in between. And then I did another one, you know, and so those are a fun bit of business where you're just sort of playing with rhythm and verse and vocabulary and trying to find something, you know, some texture there. Yeah.
2 + 2 is 5 is asking, will we see different arc lengths? 2 issues, 3 issues, 6 issue arcs?
Well, we sort of played with that a bit with Twisted Loyalty, right? Where we had the 2 issues drawn by Danica, and then we had Doug come back, you know, for the 2-parter. And so thematically they tied together, but they were sort of 2 separate stories. I said very early on that that was what I wanted to do. I didn't want every arc to be 4 issues. And so honestly, the not to, yeah, I don't think it's a spoiler. The next issue that's coming with the big confrontation with the Son of the Tooth is a 22-page fight scene. It's just a pulp banger. Nice. The way I explained it when I wrote the outline, I said, look, if Dragon Ball can have a 100-page fight scene, we can do 22. I don't see why we can't just go all out. And so the Son of the Tooth story ends next issue, and we have one issue beyond. And it's a done in one. It's a Weird Tales style. And it does take place right after the Son of the Tooth story. And it connects in terms of narrative, connective tissue, but it's self-contained. So that's what, 32, I think.
Yeah.
I just saw the final proofing on it. And so essentially that is what you're saying. It's a 3-parter and then a done in one. It'll all be in one trade paperback, Ghosts and Echoes, when it comes out. But yeah, and it's funny, I changed the name of that story arc actually because of that single story. So the original name of the arc, and I think I even announced it on social media, was supposed to be A Taste for Vengeance. And then I realized that the single story wasn't referenced by that. Like, it didn't feel like it had that it's not a story about vengeance. It's very much a Weird Tales kind of thing. And I was like, that doesn't quite handle what I want it to. And the story of the Son of the Tooth was originally in my head when I was sort of planning it out. He was just like this badass, vicious character. And the more I wrote him, the more kind of pitiable and kind of tragic he became. And then I realized, I was like, I don't think A Taste for Vengeance quite matches what I ended up writing in the end. So I came back at it and called it Ghosts and Echoes. And it just felt more and it was funny because Richard has already started lettering that first issue. Right. And I literally messaged him and said, we're changing the name of the story arc. And he was like, what? I'm literally doing the title page right now. I'm like, change it. And so he changed the on the fly. Yeah, he did a great job, of course. And now, you know.
So it looks like Sean Curley's lurking.
Oh, lurking. Amazing. It's either Matt John or Sean Curley. Yeah.
Oh, that awesome. Could be either. Just praise for you all along.
I know that was the craziest thing. when someone did that metal version of Confronting Crom, I was pretty chuffed about that. It was very cool. We had that playing in the house for a couple of days.
Yeah. There's always that question. If only we could have Red Sonja.
Yeah. So someone was asking me about Red Sonja stuff because I did a Unbreakable Red Sonja miniseries before I did the new Conan relaunch of Titan, and they were like, "Oh, will you do more Red Sonja?" And right now, I don't have any Danes to do it, but it was really fun to do. And one of the things I did at the end of that miniseries, spoilers, in the post kind of credit in the epilogue of that, there's a cameo from Rogatino, from Red Sonja of Rogatino. And the reason why is because if at some point I can say I wrote a story for every Robert E. Howard character, then that checks that box, so.
How many do you have left at this point?
Well, how many are left? I don't have a running tally. I probably should. Jeff Shanks would probably know. I will. I don't know if I'll check every box, but imminently before issue 50. But all I can tell you is several more boxes will be checked in the months to come. So yeah.
Yeah, like when you run out, no more event stories, I guess.
Yeah. I don't know about that. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. So someone said, Dan, you've got a great question.
Combination.
I don't know what he's talking about.
Okay.
I think he's just expecting you to have a good question because you're Dan.
Sure you have some lined up here.
Man, I've been hoping other people would take it. I was going to ask about your creative process with Ivan Gill, and you answered that without me asking about it. So.
Yeah, and so every artist is different. What feels so good is that with De La Torre, he didn't want to be dictated to in terms of panel count per page or exactly what dialogue would be there before the art. So I laid it out very much in this like couple paragraphs per page. Here's the big beats. Here's what we need to know. Maybe there's reference material. Sometimes there's a key piece of dialogue, but most of it's just like very free form. Then he would deliver these pages that just, hit like a battering ram. And then I would sweat over the keyboard and be like, how can I write narrative to match this insanely beautiful stuff? And at the same time, I was writing full script for Braithwaite for Arc 2. And he wanted your classic, here's the panel, here's the thing. And Doug will either split or combine actions sometimes. So he'll be like, I know you said it's 6 panels, but it's 4 now because I can have 2 things happen at once. Or this felt like it needed an extra, heartbeat. So we're going to add a tight close up here or whatever. And I'm totally fine with that. I'm not, certainly not going to tell them how to visually tell the story if they've got something else in mind. But doing that with Rob meant I now had this new tool in my toolkit where I could go to an artist and say, what do you want? Like I can deal it either way, And so like Jonas Scharf, when we did Blackstone, he had never worked plot style. And he's like, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. And I was like, well, why don't we try it out on the Free Comic Day issue? And if you like it, I'll keep doing it. And if you think it sucks, then I'll just go to full script. And we finished the Free Comic Day and he's like, this is super fun. And I was like, great, then that's how we'll do it, And so like every artist is kind of gets their choice. If I know who the artist is ahead of time, and usually I do now because we're pretty well planned out, I can kind of offer them whatever they feel is going to play to their strengths. And if it's plot style and they need more detail, let's jump on a Zoom call or just send me more questions. If the full script feels like it's a straitjacket, then, let's ease off on the throttle a little bit and give you the room to play. Like whatever's going to make the best book. That's what I feel has got to be priority. The weird thing for me now is I've got a project I'm doing outside of Heroic. I'm doing a new creator-owned book, and the artist on that specifically asked me to go plot style because he'd heard about this, that I was doing it on Conan, and he really wanted to do that with a creator-owned book where we're making it together. And he's like, I think that's the most fun way to collaborate. And he's right. And then I'm doing another commercial comic project, and I sort of threw the idea out there and they were like, oh, hell no. You got it full script. That's what we're paying you for. And I was like, okay, I can certainly do that. Yeah.
We'll talk about Howard Days just for a minute. Wish I could make it to Howard Days as head walk.
That's my twin brother. He's very supportive.
Then Matthew Sears says, can't make it out to Howard Days, but I did purchase a copy of First Passage to help out the foundation with taking care of the monument that is the Howard Museum. So if you
and that was part of the conversation that I had with Butera last week was also, I'm hoping we're going to have some cool things to announce in and around the foundation stuff and the fundraising as well. So
yeah. So if you check out any of my videos, anybody out there, you've probably seen my videos. I tend to include a link for the fundraising efforts for the Howard House Museum. So definitely check that out. Check that out. Be generous. Donate largely if you can. This is a great question. Hi, Jim. Big fan of your run. I always wondered, what is your favorite era of Conan? Conan the Pirate, Thief, Mercenary, etc.
When I started, when I was writing the character at Marvel, the easy answer is the Thief, right? Because the young, impetuous troublemaker, it feels most like the kind of heisty Dungeons and Dragons stuff that I grew up on, and it feels like the most kind of the easiest way to pepper in those ingredients. If I'm being 100% honest, like when I was writing the character at Marvel, I knew the stories and I read them, but I wasn't super concerned about where they fit into the overall, canon or things like that. I was just more, man, I get to write the world's, most famous sword and sorcery character, and I got to make it feel like Conan. But, there were hundreds of Roy Thomas issues and they did pretty much everything. So I can kind of do everything. It wasn't until I lost the diamond, and I wasn't working on it anymore. And then the opportunity came to pitch again, that I really kind of steeled my nerves and said, why does this character last so long? And why are they a legend? Like, there are tons of characters that came out of the pulps, and there are dozens and dozens of stories in Weird Tales. And there are, why Conan? Why Robert E. Howard? And went back to the text with a much more intense eye on all of it. And so now I'm much more torn, to answer your question. Writing that King Conan story for issue 25 kind of unlocked something. And maybe that's because I'm turning 50 and thinking more about getting older. Now I'm thinking about the character differently as well. I'm thinking about the guy who has been dragged into being a leader of men and doesn't have that pure barbaric spirit, or feels like it's getting eaten away at the edges, and the responsibilities therein of leading a kingdom. What does that feel like? And so what's great about a character like Conan is, with those distinct periods, you can play in those playgrounds, and I'm growing to appreciate them more and more. Obviously, the pirate arc we have coming up with Valeria, the arc is called Cursed Shores Beyond, is very swashbuckling. It's got obviously an occult flair to it. Valeria is a very different kind of a character and a lot of fun to write. And that's indulgent and cool in a really great way. And I think people are going to have a blast with it. And so now it just feels like the whole field is kind of open. Like, I'm excited about, man, I didn't think a Zogger story was going to work. So, this character's a bottomless, amazing well of inspiration, and I'm excited to delve into them all. But yeah, the little kid adventurer version of me is probably the Thief. Do you guys drink ale?
Yes, Tristan, we do.
You should just fill in do you guys drink, and then there's a blank, and you could just fill in.
I mean, as Jeff has shared before, it is done responsibly, and it's not so things end at the end of the day.
True.
And
it's definitely, and there's a celebratory air to it all. It's not just like a weird piss up. No, it's a lot of fun for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we have Headwop back again.
Yeah.
Well, can I ask
what art inspired you as a kid?
He's the one who did. He's a graphic designer, and he does all the art, like all this thumbnails for my channel and stuff.
Yeah, your thumbnails have been rocking it. So
it's not
amazing.
Me, it's him.
That's great. I grew up on, like, my earliest comic memories, beyond whatever Garfield comic strips and stuff like that. Like, by the time I was reading like comic books, it was Marvel stuff. It was G.I. Joe. It was Spider-Man. I collected, my brother collected the X-Men. I collected some Fantastic Four. We both loved Doctor Strange, because that was like our Dungeons and Dragons style stuff. It was like, oh, he's a wizard and a superhero. That's amazing, But yeah, we love Dungeons and Dragons. So the era that the Stranger Things kids are playing D&D in is the same era that I, played D&D in, which is why I wrote the graphic novel for Stranger Things D&D, which is all about the kids before the TV show. So it's how they start playing D&D together and the camaraderie that they have in the game.
Is that
so
like a Russian version of it?
Wait. Oh, it is a Russian version of it. Sorry. I didn't even.
No. Am I having a stroke right now?
No, I've got the real. I grabbed the wrong one. I grabbed the Russian one. That's hilarious. The Russian publisher sent me a copy of it. Awesome. Sorry. That's the. I'm looking at it backwards on the screen anyways, so it was getting weird there. Yeah, it's been in multiple languages, as you now might realize. But yeah, so I wrote the graphic novel for Stranger Things D&D with Jody Hauser, and kind of feeding into that inspiration that I have from the game. So a lot of my early sword and sorcery education is built off the back of D&D. In the original Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Dungeon Master's Guide that Gary Gygax wrote, there's something called Appendix N. Have you guys ever heard of this?
Every time.
So there's appendices aplenty because it's written like it's a legal text, the entire Dungeon Master's Guide. Appendix N is all the books that inspired Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson to create Dungeons and Dragons. And there's a bunch of authors in there that you would recognize. There's Tolkien, and there's Howard who's listed in there. But there's other guys too, like August Derleth or like Jack Vance or Moorcock, Zelazny and Fritz Leiber and all those guys. And to me, that was like the checklist. That was this is what the DNA of sword and sorcery is. And so that led me down a rabbit hole of reading all that kind of stuff, Lord Dunsany and like all that kind of thing. And so, that was a really big kind of inspiration. And my brother would buy all kinds of used paperbacks. He would read a lot of sci-fi and fantasy. And then I just gravitated more and more to the fantasy and the sword and sorcery end of it.
So Conan the Barbarian official is spamming us. They would like to know.
Oh, now I know it must be Sean.
and yes, Tulsa Doom is less than Mike the Bulldog. And Sailor Steve is great, but Jim, Mike the Bulldog, saved the Conanverse. So these are all possibilities.
Is glorious. You have not seen the last of Mike the Bulldog. Let's put it that way. In the grand plan of heroism that the Howardverse deserves.
There's just I'm looking at comments. These are now from about 8:47, so almost an hour ago.
Phenomenal! Wow.
So
Thank you so much, man.
People are praising Sailor Steve. Ever considered doing more with Kepri?
Huh.
I don't know the reference to Kepri. So what am I missing there?
I could. Yeah. Potentially, are they talking? I don't have a specific thing in mind right now, if that's what you're asking.
Okay. More Breckenridge Elkins, please. That'll appear in the next Savage Sword.
Yes.
I don't know if Jim's doing any.
No, but that's and that's being done. Who's the creative team on that? Ron Friends is drawing it. He's one of my favorite old school Marvel artists. I absolutely love Tom DeFalco. Yeah, Tom DeFalco is writing it. I met Tom last year at Dragon Con, and we were chatting all about, he was editor-in-chief of Marvel for a little while, and he wrote a ton of amazing Marvel stuff over the years. And he always teams up with Ron Friends, who's one of my favorites. And I have sort of put the line out that I would love to have Ron do stuff. And I put him on Chris's radar, and Chris got Tom and Ron to team up. So I haven't seen the final story yet, and it should be heading off to print. I need to poke Chris for that because I really want to check it out.
This is fun. This is actually for Dan.
Will we see Isherwood again? Absolutely.
And Dan says yes.
Yes. Yeah. Isherwood is actively working on a story right now. I just saw him at the Calgary Comic Expo, and he told me exactly what he's working on. He will be appearing again in Savage Sword, though I'm not sure what issue.
So, Dan, do you have a video coming up with Jeff?
Yeah, I'm doing something about Savage Sword 5 and 6, and so I reached out to him and Jason Aaron, and I never heard from Jason Aaron. I didn't think I would anyway. But Isherwood sat and talked with me for like an hour and a half about his.
Yeah,
dude talks like a film director, and such a great storyteller. And he told me about some of the cool stuff he was working on. He's working with Christy Marks. If you're
okay, so he
Savage
did
Sword
mention
fan.
that. Yeah, he's working with Christy Marks on this new story. Yeah, it's really exciting.
So I'm looking forward to anything else that he does. He's a really cool creative.
Yeah, it was wonderful to bring him back into the family for sure.
Jim, do you wish you could write more single issue stories? Trades seem to be the requirement now, and I enjoy 4-issue arcs, but sometimes a quick in and out is good too.
I do actually, and that's why I think issue 32 is really fun, is because we do play with that classic kind of air and doing stuff like Savage Sword, where you get to do the done in one, and we can place it in the overall kind of canon, but that they exist as their own little islands. They're definitely a lot more fun. And I would say that, like, even if I stepped away from the monthly series at some future juncture, like, that wouldn't be the last you would see of me. Like, I would definitely want to do one-offs, or I would have, those creative ideas. Originally, it's so funny, before I got offered the monthly book at Marvel, I thought I had like 2 Conan stories in me, in that old kind of classic style. I pitched 2 stories, and now both of them have been done. And one of those was The Gambler, which was the 3-part story that we did in Savage Sword in the new Marvel days, that Patch Zurcher drew, which is hilarious because that story was the one that got on Fred Malmberg's radar. And he was like, wait, this is really good, like old school style kind of Weird Tale stuff. And then the second story I pitched was Leaving the Garden, the one that I did with Pace. And so those were the 2 stories that I felt were self-contained, and they felt like Weird Tale stuff to me. They were very much in that mode.
I gotta say, Dan, thanks for keeping check on the chat there.
Gary,
Dan's responding. That's great. Gary B, how's it going, man? Hopefully you're still watching.
He is great, and he is so supportive and so kind.
Gary is kind of the OG in my mind of what we do.
Very
I think,
cool.
I feel like I've seen his videos off and on over the years before I even, started doing this. So it's good to connect with him and chat with him once in a while. And we'll have to chat formally at some point, Gary. And Dan's jumping into the chat to keep people, letting people know that we're paying attention. Awesome. Any potential for more Dark Agnes in the future?
Yes. So I know that there was a mini series that Marvel was doing that ended up getting scuttled, that Becky Cloonan had written. And that is, there it is. Perfect. Yep. They're completing the Agnes series. And so I don't know when that's on the schedule for publication, but it is actively being finished. And that's another person that I met at Dragon Con last year. And I approached Becky and I said, I hope you don't feel, like spurned by, the Robert E. Howard crew. Like, we would love to do more stuff with you. And she was delighted to be put back in touch, and we kind of reconnected all that stuff and got, that Dark Agnes miniseries will get finished. And I would love to see Becky stick around and do more stuff with Agnes or other parts of the Highborn Age.
That's great. Hey, Jim. So that's Jim from Mystery Mayhem. Just to plug, Jim and I joined John Bullard about a week ago now to talk about Westerns. So that's going to come out at some point in June, I think is what we agreed on, June on the Rage event. It was a good chat.
Awesome.
I'm loving the Westerns. Dan and I were talking about it earlier.
What's your favorite one of Howard's Westerns?
I've just started, so I'm just Vultures of Wapaton is what I've read. The first 4 in the Glenn Lord book. So Vultures is great. Well, you have to watch the videos to see what I thought of the other one. The video that's coming, but I loved Wild Water. What a wicked story. Anachronistic. It was just wild. I mean, Howard can write. It's just fantastic.
The ability to summon texture and energy and action at any moment. It's so good.
Yeah. But Dan was saying with Vultures, like you can pick a page and the prose is just fantastic.
Vultures is fantastic. Really, really good. It's got a great turn to it too, where you think you know where it's going, and then it just sort of weaves into this fun. I don't want to ruin it for people. It's well worth checking out.
Yeah, so I'm gonna get knee deep in the Westerns for sure. Lion, do you have anything to say? I'm gonna scan through the comments here just because we are behind.
I was gonna ask earlier, who did the first Breckenridge Elkins story for Savage Sword? Was it Pat Searcher?
Yeah, Pat
Patch
wrote it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then one
I thought that one was awesome.
Alberto
I think
Hernandez.
it's different from the
yeah. Now there's definitely, I think he's one of those characters as well that I don't know that that I have a specific role for him in the broader kind of thing, but I feel like it's so important just to Howard in general. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't quite fit the same kind of mythic air as a lot of these other guys. I mean, neither does Sailor Steve, and I found a way to make it work. So I'm sure, you know, there's always a way. But yeah, the playfulness of those stories is the greatest. Well, Shumagarath.
So I mean, this is kind of a question I had too.
Yeah.
So Shumagarath was announced before, and now
Yes.
we have the woeful eye.
Yes. So the way that I sort of look at it in the grand scheme of things, the name has only been written once in the series. It's on that typewritten page, and it killed James Allison, right? The name itself, in the classic sort of, whether it's fairy folk or demons, you know, their true name, whatever you may say. So no one knows that name, right? The reason why the cults call it the woeful eye, the reason why, and there's other nicknames that we have as well, you know, the eye asleep, the eye awakened, and stuff like that. The eye and that, the Blackstone eye, that kind of thing. The name Shumagarath is used that one time very specifically to denote to you, the reader, that that is the true name of whatever, the eldritch monstrosity, the dark thing beyond and all that. But within the context and within the continuity, no one uses that name. You know, it's like our whatever Horcrux. You can't say the name.
I think that's how I interpreted it. I think
Yeah,
I was worried that perhaps there was a licensing issue or something, and like, oh no, we can't use it anymore. But I mean, that was such an impact on the.
Yeah. So you know, that's what's great about it, is that it does carry this kind of incredible mythic power as far as that goes. But yeah, the woeful eye is what is the name that carries forward from then on.
Just shout out to Old Man Hyborian. How's it going?
Hey, thank you. And I
here.
appreciate the reviews. I've seen them and I appreciate them.
It's part of the fold.
Yeah. Yeah. Come on down to Howard Days, bud.
Mm-hmm.
It's worth it.
Gary asked, any plans to bring Esperana into the comics?
The name is escaping me at this moment. I'm sorry.
I'm sure Gary's got the deep dive. I don't know. Dan, do you know the character? The name?
It sounds familiar, and
what if
I am blanking at this moment here.
Me too.
Is this a Savage Sword thing or a Howard thing?
I think she's a character from the Marvel continuity.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting, you know, so I think because we did Zula, right? Then people are like, oh, are you gonna, I know some people were asking me about other villains, you know, from the Roy Thomas or you know, all kinds of Jim Owsley and all the different writers that Priest and those guys had come up with over the years. And I don't have any plans to bring other characters from the Marvel continuity currently into the mix. It's possible they work their way into it in more of a cameo kind of sense. Zula was sort of special in that sense of, first of all, I loved the character, and so I've got the bias there. And then on top of that, I came up with an angle where we could both address and incorporate the Zula from Destroyer in a weird, funky way with the woman and the man. Yeah. And so I was like, yeah, this all kind of works and fits into our broader plan that we had in and around the serpent stuff with Set. But yeah, I don't have any specific plans in terms of that character.
Were you inspired by Marvel Conan the Barbarian number 214, City of Light, for Savage Sword of Conan 14?
I was not. So I would need to go back and read that story. If it was somewhere in my kind of subconscious, I would need to double check because I don't recall that one specifically.
I'm looking to see if I have it in reach, but I don't think
Jim, do you actively try to like, you know, like sometimes actors say like, oh, I didn't watch that movie because I didn't want their portrayal to affect me. Do you do that with like, you know, are you like, I'm not going to read any Roy Thomas or Elsprague?
No.
Because
you know, for example, I read Liberator specifically before I did the Conquering Crown. And in some ways, Conquering Crown is almost specifically exists because I'm not crazy about Liberator, because I feel like it's a really weirdly paced, awkwardly. I mean, the man's long dead. I'm not crazy about it. I felt like it did a real weird ism in and around, Conan getting the crown, and I felt like we could do our own version of it that hewed a little more Howardian. No satyrs, most of all. Around it. But yeah, so it was audacious in that sense of, I felt like that story had never really been focused on in a way that I liked, and so I felt like we could do something cool with it. I did deep dive on that. So there are some characters, for example, the different nobles and stuff that are running around in that story. Some of them, I believe, were only referenced in stuff like the Mongoose Conan role-playing game. And I was like, well, I need names for these guys anyways. I will use them. Why not? And so I do pretty deep research. I don't always keep everything, but I try and take in as much material as I can.
This is a common refrain.
Thank you. Yeah, getting to meet fans at the conventions and them telling me how much the stories mean to them, how much stories have meant to them since they were a kid, that they haven't been in a comic book store in decades and now they're back on a monthly basis. That's the kind of stuff that feels so incredibly special that I never, ever want to take for granted, that I'm the next link in the chain to something that, they've carried with them their entire lives. And I never want to act like that's not special, and that doesn't mean I'm always, like I said, that we're going to be perfect with it, but wherever possible, we're trying to do right by the franchise, do right by the fans, make it worth your money, and tell the kinds of stories that, I would want to see month in and month out. That means so much to me. But getting back to your question, Dan, yeah, I read all the time. And in some ways it's frustrating because people are like, what other books are you reading? And I'm like, Howard. And they're like, what else? More Howard? Like, because we've got this long-term plan, I always want to just sort of like marinate in it as much as possible. Sometimes I'm reading a story, not because I want to take a specific line of dialogue or description, but it's just like, it's so easy to get into that mode after I've read even a few pages or poetry and just be like, right, this is the bar. This is where we're trying to get to every time. And I've still got to be my own writer, but I want that language and I want that feel. I reread the Roy Thomas stuff, whenever there's a new volume of the omnibuses, I'm grabbing one of those and then I'm checking them out. And some of the stories I like and some of them I don't, but now I've got a better handle on why I like them or what I specifically am looking for in my own stories. And so I'm either learning like, got to be more like this, or, ooh, I feel like they kind of shaky there. Some of the late issues in Savage Sword are kind of all over the place. A bunch of them get very, very generic fantasy,
and I've just noticed that.
Yeah.
When I talked to Christopher Priest at Fan Expo Denver last year, I meant this as a compliment, but I said, I just finished reading every issue of Savage Sword, and he reached for his wallet and said, oh God, how much do I owe you? But
Priest is great that way. Yeah.
You've kind of led me to another question. Because you used to work at Marvel and stuff. Are you ever like, you're living so hard in the Howard universe? Are you ever just like, fuck, I have a really good idea for a Spider-Man story?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm not exclusive, but everyone kind of knows that this is where so much of my creative brain is living right now, that in some ways I think I've scared away editors that would have normally contacted me, because I was doing a lot of stuff at Marvel, and I was worried that there would be like bad blood, or they would feel like, oh, I ditched you guys for my real love, the Sumerian, take it easy, but the reality is like, everyone just knows this is where my heart's at, and this is where a lot of my creative focus is, and that's cool. But every so often I have to kind of remind them, I'm not exclusive, I can do other stuff, and so like I did a Predator story for an anthology last year for Marvel. I did that Life of Wolverine one shot for them and stuff like that. But for the most part, obviously, this is where so much of my attention is going. But I'll throw out little tethers every so often, or I'll chat with an editor and kind of lob an idea out there. A lot of times they're building stuff out long term as well. And so it's the kind of thing where I feel like, and it's not, I haven't been specifically told this, but if an editor looked and said, "Oh man, Jim would be perfect for this monthly book," they're like, "Yeah, but you're essentially competing with Conan until my time there is done," right? So same kind of thing with Dungeons and Dragons, where I'm just like, I'm still doing consulting, and my wife and I are still doing the Young Adventurers guides, but like doing another D&D comic series would be really difficult for me to kind of balance with everything else. And honestly, the next thing I want to launch, I've got one more commercial project I'm doing, and then this creator-owned book, and it's going to be at Image. It's going to come out early 2027. And I'm not an idiot. It's Sword and Sorcery because, that's where my bread is buttered, and that's where a lot of my head is at, and ideas are flowing. And that's cool. That's kind of where I want my head to be. So I've always got superhero stuff sort of percolating in the back, or I'm always sort of thinking about those kinds of things. A lot of times you read the books and you're either like, damn, I wish I'd thought of that, or what the hell are they doing? Give me the steering wheel. Those are kind of the two extremes on any of those books. And then you'll talk to the creative teams involved, and inevitably the person that's got the amazing ideas doesn't even realize how amazing they are. And the people who are sucking are just like, oh man, I wish things were going better. And you're like, oh, okay, good. You can perceive that this is off the rails right now. Or they let some broader corporate mandate that they have to, jump through the hoops with or whatever. And so you're just like, one of the things I'm so thankful of is that I do have access to, like, it's my editor and then the owner of Conan. And it's like, that's it. Those are the layers that I generally go through, and if we're excited and nothing succeeds like success. Like once we've got the momentum, it's that much easier to convince them, hey, we should keep going this way, or we should try this thing. We threw out a couple cool ideas for, Savage Sword 2027. And I threw this kind of wild idea at them. And I thought for sure they were going to knock me down, and they just said, let's do it. And I thought, okay, cool, man. Like, that we can still experiment, that we're not just resting on our laurels or anything.
Arthur Bast, will she make a return? He can't tell us that.
I can't tell you that. She didn't die for a reason, so how about that? Yeah.
That works. Will we ever see a yearly limited series not focused on crossovers, but on Conan only? Something like maybe his adventures after he abdicates the throne, maybe even beyond the Hyborian map.
I don't know that I would need to do that as a mini series per se. That might be the kind of thing you could even do, because the way the monthly works, like people were asking us if we were going to do a King Conan series, and at least while I'm at the at the helm, I don't feel like that's necessary, because I can just move into that period if I want to move into that period. In the same way that Weird Tales jumps around, I can jump around. I showed, we did the Nomad, that anniversary story, that Alex painted, and then we did Conquering Crown, and now we've moved back, and it's like, I don't feel restrained in that regard. I have more I'm going to do with the King, obviously. And some of that may play into, all kinds of those things down the road. And so I don't think it needs to be a mini series or its own separate graphic novel. But the reality is, if someone else was pitching that story, then it would probably end up in Savage Sword, or they would do it as its own separate kind of thing. But only if it didn't kind of impede where I'm heading.
How much do you think about vernacular when writing Conan?
A lot. Like, that's where it's sort of the style of the writing and the style of the narration, whether that's the Roy Thomas or the Howardness of it all. I am not those people, and I will not ever be, them, but I do need to think in that way. One of the things I did after I got approved to do the Titan series is I went through and I read all the Howard stories again. Obviously, I did that when I was brainstorming and pitching, but I had a notepad beside me and I was writing sentences that jumped out at me because of the cadence of them, because of the vernacular, because of the vocabulary, and specific words that I would not have thought to use in a sentence, on my first go through. And then I did the same thing with the Roy Thomas stuff. I read like the first 150 issues, or I think he bounces off the book. I can't remember his last issue, all the Roy first run stuff and all the original Savage Swords. And I did the same thing. I wrote what that vocabulary was, and I wrote what those sentences were, and sometimes a particular turn of a phrase. Again, not because I wanted to copy it, but because I wanted to like get into that mode. Even just, weird things, like I had a section of this brainstorming list for the way they would describe colors. You know what I mean? That you could call something saffron instead of, whatever. Like, it's not just orange, it's not just red, it's crimson, or sapphire, or like something like that. Describe it like a jewel, describe it like a stone. And the more of that I read, and the more I read of it with an air for research, the more I saw those patterns in a good way, that I was sort of like, oh, these are levers I can pull. And the more I do them, the more comfortable I get with them. And, I remember some of the sentences I was writing in Bound in Blackstone, Rob's art's coming in, and I'm writing that narration, and I'm starting to think in that way. I'm starting to stack the words and the descriptors in a way that felt a little more Howardian, more naturally. Like I would always get there, but, the best compliment people give me is they say, I was born to write this. And I say, well, my drafts say otherwise, but it's getting easier. Like now, particularly, I can form those sentences, or I'm like, the minute I put it down, the sentence, I go, that's not it. Maybe I don't know what it is, but I know that's a placeholder. I'll come back to it. And it used to have to go through rounds with the editor, and we would bounce it back and forth until we pinballed the right one. And now it's like, I already know that's not the right word, or that's not quite the sentence where I wanted it to go. You know what I mean? Yeah. And the same thing with a Conan line, like he speaks and I go, that ain't it. No. He doesn't say it like that, and then I find it. I can't say the specific project. Be careful, Jim. I wrote Conan stuff that's not comic related, and part of it was generating a bunch of Conan dialogue that had to sound like Conan. And I ended up popping out battle cries and insults, and it was really good brainstorming material. It took me a couple days to get these. Oh God, there must have been 50 or 60 lines specific to that were Conan, sentences. And the act of doing that was such a pain in the ass. And then when I was done, I was so glad I'd done it, because it was almost like doing reps. It was like doing exercise. And I was like, man, this is, yeah, that's the voice. That's the way he speaks. That's the thing. And so even now, if I struggle with a bit of dialogue, I go back to that vocabulary list that I've got, my brainstorming list. I go back to a Howard story. And now I've got this other bit of writing that I did. And I don't, again, just crib directly. I just look at it and go, well, you hit all those. Clearly you got them, in mind. You can do it. Yeah.
I got a question. This is off of a Reddit user, Iron Davis. It looks like he's in Germany. Sweet. And I like this question.
He's the guy who does the Howardverse website.
Oh, is it? Okay.
The unofficial one, I think.
Okay,
oh, amazing.
Okay. He says, each time I reread one of the REH originals, I find something new about Conan's personality and the way he acts. Have you found anything surprising about Conan's personality after writing him for so long?
Yes, absolutely. I feel like he really does go on the full journey in terms of the impetuous youth all the way to the grudgingly responsible, leader of men. And it's actually quite clear when you go through the stories eventually in chronological order. Things like Beyond the Black River, that are so iconic because of the way they talk about civilization versus savagery, and the kind of resolution that he has in and around humanity's foibles and the darker sides of our own instinct. That stuff is the kind of thing that I wanted to address. When you read The Nomad, the descriptor that The Nomad has for Conan is literally like my own observations of him. Like I'll grab, I need to grab the book. There's a line in there that I worked really, really hard on, and it is like what I have observed in the character, without trying to sound too dramatic, but I guess it's pretty dramatic as a matter of course. Let me just pull this up here, because it was weird, because it was like I was trying to find the words to describe the man. And the more I worked on it, the more I realized that the nomad was becoming my mouthpiece for that very thing. So there's a moment where he says, Evan, can I share screen? Does that work?
Yeah, you should be able to. I don't know if I can offer you guidance on how to do that, but
select a tab. I think I can.
You should. It's the presenter invite, and then it'll.
All right, one sec here.
It'll punt us.
All the technology, it's good when. Okay, so I think I just switched my tab. Are you seeing that?
I can see it. It's not on the screen. Maybe I need
You're going to pull it up.
Add to the stage. There you go.
Is it there?
It is.
Yeah.
It's there.
All right. So he says, "You are indeed a worthy opponent, Conan, a heroic murderer, a philosopher barbarian, a convoluted container for every man's lustful, rage-filled pride and poetry. But my gift is not but for legends, and thus your story and kingdom must end here." And that's like, in a nutshell, kind of what I think of Conan. Like he is a dichotomy, right? Like he is murderous, savage, poetic, like beautiful, terrifying, like the dichotomy of what it is to be, I don't know, to be a man, to be a survivor, to be uncivilized, to be human and animal, all that kind of stuff. And the more that I write it, the more kind of exciting it is for me to sort of delve into some of those pieces. I didn't understand what I would read, like describes him like a panther, or describes like, all these kinds of things. And I was like, yeah, he kicks the guy's ass. Yeah, he's really violent. Yeah, he's going to tear that guy apart. And now I think of it and I'm like, oh, no, there is this kind of quality in those earlier stories where he is more of the outsider. And then he has to sort of figure out what it is to be in and amongst people and to be separate from them. Kull has a much more, dark and brooding air about his kingship. And there's sort of like, he's really chained to it. And Conan sort of feels some of those things as well in his later years, but there's a different kind of a quality to them. So yeah, I appreciate them more and more. And I'm excited to delve even deeper into them.
Yeah. Just again, people saying lovely things. I think you can make anything work with Conan, Jim.
Thanks,
Jim.
man.
Yeah. Respect for Howard and Conan, the original Marvel run, and that goes a long way with readers. More praise, Jim. Thanks for getting me back into comics with your stellar Conan work. Industry question: do you have any thoughts on DC's popular Absolute series of books?
Man, they have got the wind at their backs. I'll tell you what, it's really exciting to see so many new readers coming into comics. I think the Wonder Woman book's really cool because it's got that mythic dark air to it. Very much feels super badass in that way. I think it's great. I think anything that drives people into the stores and gets them excited, gives them a ground floor to come in on, is super, super valuable. And it is rising tides raise all ships. Like Image has had a series of bangers, over the past 8-9 months as well. Like, I don't know if you guys have read Brett Bean's Dork. It's this cartoony fun fantasy book, but it's absolutely taken off. It's like kind of a sassy, more violent kind of bone. It's really playful and joyous, and whatever brings people in the door. I know you may not look and go, well, those guys aren't going to read Conan. You're like, hey, first of all, those people grow up and there's always room for them to get on board. And there's something for everybody. I think that's what's really exciting about it. Yeah, absolutely. Dork's great, man. It's super fun. Brett's a buddy of mine. When I was at Calgary, I was looking through his portfolio. He had a Conan commission that he'd done. And I was like, you got to send this to Chris. This is so great. And he's like, well, I didn't want to lean on our friendship. I'm like, dude, just send it to him. It's super fun and cartoony and great. Like, these characters are iconic. You can play with them. But yeah, the Absolute books. I try and keep up on the superhero stuff, but obviously it's really, really difficult. So I am probably 6 or 7 months behind on Absolute reading. Al Ewing's doing Absolute Green Lantern, and he and I work together on Avengers stuff, and he's an absolute sweetheart, one of the kindest and most generous collaborators that I've ever worked with. Scott Snyder is doing an amazing job at getting out there and just promoting the living hell out of those books. Like, that was inspiring to me. Ostensibly, Absolute Batman was going to be a bestseller no matter what. And in the months leading up to that launch, Scott was on every damn comics channel, every website, no matter how big, no matter how small. It was like a manic amount of intense promotional zeal in a way that I have not seen from comics people in a long time. And that's the kind of passion we need right now. Like, when I go to a convention, I want to meet people, and I want to get you reading and excited about these books. You know what I mean? And it inspired me when I was seeing Scott out there beating the drum. I was like, damn, I got to go further. I got to push harder. Like, it maybe only 5 more people get on board because you did that YouTube live stream or whatever, but that's 5 people who didn't know about it before. Or if you guys, it sounds corny, but if you guys buy a book and you give it to someone else, or you share the things you love, it means so much more when a reader or a retailer puts it in the hands of a new reader and says, this is one of my favorite things, you got to check this out. And they've been able to really capture that grassroots energy. And I feel like we're trying to do that in both directions. We're trying to bring back the old school fans and show them that there's a home for them here, that the reason why Conan was a bestseller in the 70s and in the 80s is the reason why you should read it now, but that we're not pushing anyone away, that you can get on board with volume 1. I had some people say, like, issue 25 is the perfect place to start, because then you get a sense of the grandeur and the legend. And I was like, I hadn't really thought of it that way, but man, if that works for you, I don't care how you start. I didn't start on the first issue of Amazing Spider-Man. My first issue of Amazing Spider-Man was number 231, and it's like a random ass issue of Spider-Man fighting a guy called the Cobra. But I just thought it was so cool, and it was so much darker and more mature than the Spider-Man cartoon I'd seen. And I was like, well, I just want to read everything. And I wanted to read in both directions. I wanted the new issues, and then I went backwards and just started digging through the back issue bins. And that's an amazing compliment when someone says they picked up a trade paperback or the latest issue of Savage Sword, and now they're desperately digging, trying to find my back issues. And it's like, well, that's the coolest thing I could ask for,
Well, we are at the 2-hour mark. Star Metal got me into Conan the Adventurer cartoon.
Hey, so many
pathways.
Yeah. There is a Conan of every generation, man. And this is the thing, like, don't dissuade, like, the Conan Exiles is huge. There were over 40,000 concurrent players on Steam over the weekend per day. Like, that is a massive audience. Then a lot of these people, the broader pop culture kind of vision of Conan is being brought to them. Same thing with the board game, same thing with the novels, same thing with all this stuff, the cartoon, the Arnold movie, like, it all feeds into this broader vision. One of the things I've been beating the drum on constantly is the fact that the licensors, the video game people, the tabletop role-playing game people, and the board game people, everyone needs to be lifting each other up and cross-promoting, because there's no reason why the video game people shouldn't get the link to the free comic book day issue. That's free stuff. You like Conan? Check this out. You know what I mean? And vice versa. Like, let's put a QR code for the video game in the comics. We did it for the role-playing game. You got the quick start QR code that was in the back of the issue. And that was me and Matt John just beating the drum and going, like, we're all in this together. We're all family. Let's build something awesome, And if there is a future movie or a TV show or animation or whatever, I would want the same kind of thing. Like, it just raises us all up. It all just builds on the momentum.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say this perhaps is the final question from the chat. I'm just cognizant of the time. Mr. Zub, who makes the decision for reprint format?
I have no control.
Think it's Jim.
It's all Titan. So I know the question I get asked at almost every convention is, why isn't there an omnibus? Why isn't there more deluxe editions? Why isn't there fill in the blank hardcover omnibus of previous reprint stuff, the Dark Horse stuff, or fill in the blank. I don't control any of that stuff, so I throw ideas into the mix with Nick Landau and the Ricky and John at Titan and all those guys. Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who stopped by. And they end up making their publishing plan. And in publishing, they're planning 9, 10, 12 months out for future release stuff. So that's the reason why I need to have those outlines or plan out the future events or build out the kind of broader schedule for these things. But then they're deciding in their markets. And then Panini or whoever the foreign publishers are, they're usually following a similar format, but in theory, they can do their own thing. So for example, I think in Spain, I think they are just incorporating the different event miniseries into the regular monthly book. You know what I mean? Because that's just part of the way that they've decided to reprint it. Woeful Titan gives the Dark Horse and Conan. So
I want the Jim Zub omnibus.
I do. So what I wanted to do, I threw an idea out where I said we do all my pre-Titan stuff because there's about 22 issues because we've got Conan Red Sonja that I did with Gail, and Dan Panosian drew that miniseries too, man. You've got my all the Marvel issues that I did, including the Savage Sword story. You've also got Serpent War, which is sort of that initial, almost like our precursor to the Howard verse, kind of playing in that realm for the very first time. I would love to see that all, because most of those trades are way out of print. And so I would love to see them back in print. I'd love to have a big fat hardcover. When they originally asked me, they're like, how much Conan do you think you can write? I said, dude, I want to write till I get one of these. Like I want something like, this is the Black Panther Wakanda one. I've got a few stories in here, but nothing compared to like Crispy. I want one of these that just says, Conan the Barbarian, Jim Zub. And if you hand it over to me, it like hurts you. And when we drop it off the third story landing, it kills a child. Like that's how much.
And we all want that.
That's right.
Not to kill children.
Not to kill children. Just to clarify, YouTube algorithm. Yeah. The children are very much alive and reading lots of books.
Lion, Dan, any questions from you guys?
No.
The final questions.
Not that I can think of.
I know, right? It's Dan, what are you working on? Anything coming out in the near future?
Not super near future. Like I said, I'm doing something about Savage Sword 5 and 6. And then I've kind of started like a mega project that is going to take me through like the summer.
Okay.
And I'm not going to say what it is yet because I don't know how it's going to turn out.
Yeah, be careful with those.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm dreaming big right now. I'm trying to do a lot of blogging about like widening my lens a little bit about Jarell of Jowry and Carl Edward Wagner's Cain and stuff. So
very cool.
Good stuff. And Lion, the proof of life is great. I know that people on Facebook were worried about you.
Yeah, dude. My plan is to catch up to all the reviews I've missed. It's been like 5 months since the last one I did, so gotta get back on that. And then looking forward to Howard Days, and who knows after that.
Yeah, Howard Days. We're all going to be there on the second day. The three of us YouTube guys are on a panel, so that'll be fun. John Fullard is going to host that. I think Sean's going to be there. We'll see who else shows up. So we'll just talk about Robert E. Howard on YouTube, how we all got to be here, the nerds that we are. Myself, this is going to make you guys jealous anyways. So Rodolfo Martinez sent me this. It is Robert E. Howard's Hyborian Age. It's the complete and ultimate guide. It was last year's winner of the Atlantean for the REH award for 2025. This is a treasure. This is great. So I had recently got the Glenn Lord, The Last Celt, and I was saying to Jim from Mystery and Mayhem that it's like the internet before the internet. Those glory days when you had a book and it was just so priceless to have because it had all those appendices and whatnot in it. And this is like that. So I'm got to work on a review for this. It's fantastic though. So that's Rodolfo or Rudy Martinez's Robert E. Howard's Hyborian Age. So we'll get to that in the next couple of weeks or so, hopefully before Howard Days.
Do you guys want to give the people who have stuck with us a real treat? Do you want me to
You gonna reveal something live? Let's do it.
Well, so I think if people have stuck around,
it looks like Mike Ruth wants to.
Yeah, hey,
well,
Mike.
there you go. So here's what I'm gonna do. Don't tell Chris Butera. I'm going to show you guys some inks from
I don't want to be responsible for it.
Tides of the Tyrant King #1 coming out in September. I got to show. Jesus is on fire. You got to see this stuff. So why don't you share that puppy? Look at it.
Freaking awesome, dude.
Gonar the Seeker, looking up to the stars. Oh my God.
Nice.
That looks amazing.
It's so good, dude. Every page is a banger. It is just crazy. Just crazy. The quality is out to lunch.
Look at that. Oh my God.
Right?
I want that on a shirt.
I know. Right? It's like it is the blacklight poster we've all been waiting for. But yeah, man, this is my job. Artists like Jesus Marino or Ivan Gill or Doug Braithwaite or Rob De La Torre, I open my inbox and artwork comes rolling in and I'm just like, what is this? Like, how can this possibly be my job? How can this be a career? Having the time of my life. And a big part of it is thanks to the support of people like you. So thank you for reading. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for proving that the age of high adventure is alive and well.
And I think of that, we'll say, until next time, take it easy, you Stygian Dogs.
Bye-bye. See you guys later.